Margaret Brennan thought she would be slick and get to trick a massive CEO into trashing Trump. But when you're the CEO of Bank of America and you deal with massive pressure, massive decisions, and a lot of media appearances, you can't just get tricked into trashing the President of the United States. Now, despite spilling his water cup on set of Face the Nation and not cleaning it up, by the way,
makes the rates permanent.
Brian Moynihan, the CEO of Bank of America, gives some great answers and insight into Trump's thinking on the economy and into what economists are really thinking compared to what the liberal media tries to tell you. It's CeanDaniel here. If you got a coffee mug or water cup in your hand, hold on to it tight.
Your Bank of America economists say no rate hikes this year and no recession. Is that still the case after Friday's jobs report?
Yeah, it's still the case. And that's a less growth than they would have had 6-9 months ago and reflects the impact of the tariff war and the trade and all that. But they still think we continues to grow. We're growing at a slow rate, say 1.5% this year, a little more next year, and a little more the year after that. But it'll take inflation for the Fed to get inflation out of the system really through the end of 26 into 27 down to the 2% level. And that's why they have the Fed holding. What they believe is sort of in the middle of next year, the Fed will start cutting and bring the Fed funds rate closer to what would be a more normal rate around 3%, 3.5%.
So even though we saw this really kind of astounding dissent by two members of the Fed saying we do need to move on interest rates, your prediction from your economists is that that's not appropriate at this time.
They don't think they're going to move. Now, the market says they're going to move in September, maybe twice this year. The market was at 7 times 1 point this year. Now they're down to 2. Then they're down to 1. Now they're up to 2. This is going to move around. But the reality is two things people should really keep in focus. One is until the inflation is out of the system, the Fed's going to be very careful, and that's what they said. And then secondly, the rate we're going to go to is a rate that is more normal than pre-global financial crisis, more of a 3%, 3.5% rate, which actually means the American economy is probably functioning better, frankly.
So on that point, the Wall Street Journal, when we were reading in, puts the tariff tax increase as costing $360 billion a year. That's one of the largest tax increases in history, they say. Do you believe the administration's arguments that it's really only foreigners who are going to pay the cost of this? Do you think economists are overstating the negative impact?
Well, I think no one really knows, honestly, because this is a different regime than we've been in before. And so they're trying to extrapolate from things from 50 years ago when economies are different structured. Our team thinks has an impact on inflation of about 30, 40 basis points.
Meaning adding to prices people are paying.
Yeah, adding to the inflation rate in the United States. But we need to back up. What the real impact right now is the new Trump administration coming in had 4 or 5 policy areas they were really going to go after, having learned in the 4 years they had to move very quickly. Those were around trade and tariff and immigration and taxation and deregulation. What businesses, and I just was in the Midwest with a bunch of businesses, are all trying to do is figure out what the answer will be so they can go ahead and make their plans for 26. So the activity that's slowed down has more to do with people just trying to figure out the answer. And it doesn't mean every answer is acceptable, but most answers are. So what they have answers on? Obviously, a tax bill getting done. That's a good answer for business because it makes the rates permanent. What's the second thing they have an answer on? They have an answer now on the range of trade possibilities. And so as they think about the trade possibilities, they sit there and say, tariffs might not be worse than X. They see some deals getting done, all of which is good work. What they don't have an answer on is deregulation. Yes, new regulations stop, but they're hoping for more deregulation so that will help their business models going forward. And then the last is immigration. What will immigration really settle in like? And that's what they tell us. So they're not using their lines of credit. The indications from them are they're being a little more cautious, really waiting for some answers.
Not only is the CEO of Bank of America giving us middle ground answers to Margaret's pointed questions to make Trump and the administration look bad, but he's going to keep his cool the entire time, not only throughout that answer, but the rest of the interview after making this big mistake where he hits the mug, and there's going to be water on the table. I scrubbed through the rest of the interview. We're going to watch it together. But I saw how they don't clean it up, and he just keeps staying focused, giving good answers. That's impressive.
Businesses aren't hiring either, we saw in this jobs data on Friday. It was the worst 3 months for job growth since the pandemic. Your firm, when I was reading the analysis, points to a number of different factors, and one of them is artificial intelligence. and the adoption of that impacting hiring. How dramatically is it reshaping the job market?
Well, I think this is sort of a question of almost a glass half full, half empty type of thing. So the impact.
No pun intended.
Yeah, exactly. Sorry about that. But the impact of technology on human work content as a percentage of productivity has been huge. In our company, in 2010, when I started with the management team, we had 285,000 people. We have 212,000 people today. That was the impact of technology. We're bigger, more customers, more transactions, more reports to the government, more data, et cetera. So the impact has always been huge. AI gives you a place to go that we've never been able to go before. In other words, there are jobs that take text, think about it, and produce it. Many, many jobs in our company, our research team. Now you're able to maybe use a machine to enhance that activity. So we believe that people who harness AI for their benefit are going to be very successful. That my teammates will harness AI for their benefit, very successful. It's nervous-making for young kids now saying, will the jobs be there for me? And
right.
Then I say, look back historically. America has a lot more people working here, and think about the amount of technology came out over the last 50 years, and we have twice as many people working in this country as we did 50 years ago, twice as many, and the population's only gone up by about a third. So think about that dynamic as it finds its way through it. That's the glass half full part of it, but it will have an impact. I don't think it's impacting a lot right now because many companies are just trying to learn how to use it.
Yeah.
Technology is impacted, and AI gives it a place to go. It hasn't gone so far.
That goes against a lot of the fear-mongering and negative rhetoric that I've heard personally from people that we see on TV. You've probably heard from people about the job prospects going forward. Oh, there's AI. So many things are going to be replaced. You won't be able to have a job anymore. Like he said, we have twice as many jobs as we did way back when, 100 years ago, whatever he's saying. And look at how many technological advancements we've had in the last 50, 100 years. But yet there's more jobs. That makes a lot of sense to me. Now, will a lot of little mundane things maybe be replaced with AI? Yeah, that makes sense. But I've never heard that perspective before, and that just makes sense.
We're talking about all the unknowns and why it's kind of hard to model things right now.
Exactly.
Well, Friday, the president fired, as you know, the head statistician that comes up with these jobs numbers and presents them to the public. The former head during the first Trump administration came out in her defense and said this is without merit and it undermines credibility of data. Are you concerned by this firing, and do you feel there is political pressure here?
Well, I think that's more politics, and I know I'm in Washington, D.C., and that's what we're supposed to talk about.
Government data.
But the reality is the data. It's 2025.
You know.
It's 2025, and the data should be able to be. They use surveys and things like that, which frankly just aren't as effective anymore. So if you look at the rate of people who respond to their surveys, it's down from 60% level to 50% level. You know, we don't use surveys as aggressively we do. We watch what consumers really do. We watch what businesses really do. They can get this data, I think, other ways. And I think that's where the focus ought to be. How do we get the data to be more resilient and more predictable and more understandable? Because what bounces around is restatements. And that was one of the largest restatements going back 5 or 7 years into the pandemic, 5 years in the pandemic. That creates doubt around it. And so I think the key is let's spend some money. Let's bring the information together. Let's find where else in the government money is reported. We report millions and millions of data points to the government every day. The data is out there somewhere.
Finally, back in January, you were at Davos. President Trump talked about Bank of America.
Many conservatives complained that the banks are not allowing them to do business within the bank, and that included a place called Bank of America. They don't take conservative business, and I don't know if the regulators mandated that because of Biden or what.
Do you want to respond to the allegation that conservatives are not being allowed to do business with your bank?
We have 70 million consumers, and we're the biggest small business lender. So that's not it. The issue they're focused on is the regulators' impact on this industry. And you heard Senator Scott talk about this week. This reputation, this after-the-fact look that you banked X, and now after the fact you're going to say X didn't turn out to be what you thought. So we look at it based on risk. People may feel those decisions are made for some other reason, but we always make it on what's best for our company, what's best for the client.
Are there industries you are uncomfortable doing business with?
No, we do business with really
guns, oil and gas, tobacco, all of it?
We do business with all those industries. Individual companies, because of credit decision stuff, that's different. But the reality is that if they gave us clarity from the regulatory thing and avoid the second guessing, that would be helpful. And I think that's what the president was pointing out if you listen to him.
No, Trump was pointing out about major conservatives that have been debanked from Bank of America. There's a lot of names that say controversial things out there that have had debanking issues, and Trump had the balls to say that. This guy doesn't have the balls to back it up and be honest about that. He knows about it. He's the CEO. I imagine he knows about it. Disappointed with that answer by him, but I know he's the company man, CEO. What's he supposed to say? But the rest of what he said, by not taking Margaret's bait to trash on Trump and giving middle ground answers, even explaining the logic of Trump's frustration with the jobs report that came out and the massive amount of revisions they do, the most amount of revisions this time since 1968, we heard Kevin Hassett point out in an interview, which I'll link at the end of this video. So that was cool to hear from Bank of America CEO not taking the bait from Margaret Brennan. It's Sean Daniel here, and if you want to see that video of Trump's guy, Kevin Hassett, explaining why he's frustrated with the jobs report that came out as he disputes some of the ridiculous questions from Kristen Welker, check out this video right here, and I'll see you in the next one.